We're going to do a push-up with the Core-Tex where the feet are on the Core-Tex and the hands are going to be on the Bosu balance trainer, or you could even use a medicine ball for this. What we're going to ask Olden to do is feet are nice and centered in the Core-Tex, and he's going to get up onto the balls of his feet. And he's going to, once he's up there, he's going to be in a nice plank position. Good line from his shoulder to his hip to his ankle. And he's going to do a push-up here. Now, as he does this, he's got a base of support for his upper body, and he's got a base of support for his lower body, both that are moving, both creating reactions throughout the body that are going to create more need for stabilization. Now, what we can add to this or create a separate movement for is we're going to have Olden keep his elbows extended and stay there. And what he's going to do with the knees straight is he's going to draw the Core-Tex towards him, which causes his hips to go up in the air. So it's a concentric contraction in the abdominals, and then as the Core-Tex moves away and the hips drop, there's an eccentric contraction. So he's got to control all that motion with his abdominals and keep it nice and smooth as he goes through that piked position there. So big demand on the abs as he does this. Great abdominal exercise. Hip circles are an exercise that we perform in the bridging position and take full advantage of the motion of the Core-Tex to create a reaction at the hips. We're going to have Olden bridge up nice and high in this position. His feet are straight ahead, foot, ankle, knees, hips in line, weights on the shoulders and the shoulder blades. Central dowel, the Core-Tex is right in the center. From here, he's going to take that dowel, if you envision it moving around in circles through the whole inside of that inner ring of the Core-Tex, but without touching it. As he does that, because his feet are fixed on the ground, he's getting this nice reaction at the hip. So he's taking it all the way around in circles, going both directions. This is a great exercise for people with lack of mobility in their hips. Also adds to the stability requirements, again, because we're always having to decelerate the available motion at the Core-Tex. We're going to make it a little bit harder. We're going to have Olden bring his feet closer together as a progression. Now his base of support is much more narrow, and his control has to be greater at the hips and all the way down to the feet as he goes through the same movement. The running man is we're going to go with the feet on the Core-Tex, hands on the ground. Mary Lou is going to bring one knee towards her chest as the other moves away. We get that pumping motion of the legs as if we're running. We've still got all the oscillations of the Core-Tex going on. We want to progress this a little bit. We can get Mary Lou to do a push-up in sync with her legs. Really overall increases demand, big cardiorespiratory demand on the body as well. Nice smooth movement back and forth between the two legs. Shoulder bridge with the feet on the Core-Tex and your client athlete on the floor. We're going to have Olden with his feet straight ahead, centered in the Core-Tex, going to lift his buttocks off the floor as high as he can into a bridge. As he comes up, he's keeping that central dowel of the Core-Tex in the middle of the ring and having to control that, avoiding bumping out. And we're going to do it actively where he's going to come down and he's going to tap his buttocks on the floor, keep the muscles loaded the whole time, keeping the knees in line with the hips as he goes up and down, and he's got to control three-dimensional space underneath his feet as he's doing that. We're going to have him rest for a second because what we're going to do now is we're going to have, as he goes up, he's going to hold the bridge, which is always an option, but once he's up there, we're going to have him extend one knee, which is going to create extension at the knee and the hip and some rotation of the pelvis, therefore at the trunk, and he's going to bring it back and forth, and that adds a whole new dimension to doing the bridge with the options that the Core-Tex provides. So Olden's going to go up nice and high. Now he's up in that position. Now he's going to straighten the one knee and cause a big turn in the Core-Tex, and he's going to come back and straighten the other knee. Really loads up the hamstrings eccentrically at the same time. Going to keep that butt up nice and high. We've got a whole new dimension to your standard shoulder bridge in this position with the Core-Tex. Shoulder bridge with feet on the Core-Tex now allows us to take that motion of the Core-Tex and create a three-dimensional movement that has to be responded through at the hip, and in this case with the foot on the floor. We're going to have Olden go up with one foot on the floor, one foot on the Core-Tex. He's got that central dowel sitting nice and centered, and now he's going to make circles with it where it's just going through without really bumping into the edges, and that's part of the control that has to happen. At the same time, there's a reaction going on at the left leg, which is on the floor from the foot all the way up to the hip, that has to respond to everything that this leg does. At the same time, he's maintaining that static bridge position with the buttocks up in the air. To make this a little bit harder, or progression, we're going to have Olden bring his butt down, and we're going to have him put both feet. He's going to slide towards me a little bit now so he's more centered with the Core-Tex. He's going to put both feet in the center. In Olden's case, he's probably going to give himself a little bit more space from the back of his legs to the edge of the Core-Tex, because now we're going to, with the knees and the feet staying nice and tight so that it expands the available range of motion at the hip. We're going to have Olden bridge up again, nice and high. He's going to hold that bridge, but now with the feet and knees together, he's going to circle and move in nice, complete circles here all the way through. And again, taking that dowel and just staying nice inside the inner ring that the Core-Tex base has. Coming all the way back towards him. And then he's going to reverse directions and take it in both motions. So he's got the static bridge going here, and the knees are staying nice and tight. The side lunge is where we're going to use the Core-Tex as the piece of equipment that's going to create the reaction at the opposite knee on the ground. Mary Lou is going to have to eccentrically control the Core-Tex as she goes into her lunge on the right leg, comes back up, and now any moves here are going to be reflected in that right knee. She got to eccentrically control with the adductors as she moves away. If we want to progress this a little bit for Mary Lou, we're going to give her the medicine ball. With the medicine ball, now she's got added resistance. We can also change the drivers, meaning we can bring that medicine ball in different directions, kind of a wood chop. She can reach with it forward as she comes down and back, each time creating a different reaction with the leg on the ground versus the leg on the Core-Tex. The split squat, or the static lunge on the Core-Tex, is going to have the front foot in the center of the Core-Tex, and Mary Lou's going to be keeping a centered downward pressure. So the Core-Tex should be centered, the central dowel is sitting in the middle, back leg is straight. She's got both legs loaded up pretty good, so weight is distributed between the two legs. As she goes down, any disruptions in her center of gravity are going to create a movement here. But again, the back leg is going to take the responsibility for that, to have to control it. So as she's moving here, this back leg's under a lot of demand. If we want to add some different arm motions again and create a disruption in the center of gravity by getting the trunk to rotate or to move into the frontal plane, or any of those things are going to significantly increase the demand of this exercise. Or we can add the medicine ball or dumbbells into the hands also to increase the progression of this exercise. But that back leg is doing a lot of work right now. The Spiderman is a great exercise for oblique movements and rotation, as well as upper body stabilization and activity. So Mary Lou is going to get into the push-up with the rotation, but she's also bringing the knee up to the same side that she's turning to and coming back. She's alternating sides. We're getting a little tap with the toe as she comes up, gives her a chance to stabilize herself a little bit with a little bit of help. If we want to progress this and make it a little bit harder now, Mary Lou's going to do it where the foot never touches the ground, so she doesn't get that extra point of reference as she comes up. Huge demand on both the upper body, all through the core, and those oblique lines. The windmill is an exercise that we do supine laying on the Core-Tex, where we want to work on controlled motion and controlled rotation. So Olden's going to bridge up for us in this position, and he's going to get the Core-Tex centered. So the central dowel is going directly in the center. He's got himself lifted up. His feet and knees are hip width apart. If we want to make it a little bit more challenging, we're going to bring those feet closer together. If we want to make it a little bit harder, or easier rather, we're going to bring those feet apart. He's got the dowel centered. He's going to extend the arms directly over his chest with the elbows straight. And from here, he's going to rotate side to side with both the head and the thorax, but he's keeping it controlled. We're getting some motion across those oblique lines of the body, lots of stability going on down low. So Olden's avoiding bumping the bumper on either side and using that knee to control to keep some constant tension under the muscles through the abdominals, glutes, hamstrings, quads. We're going to make it a little bit harder for Olden. We're going to give him a medicine ball. So now we're going to add weight further away from center. We've got that long lever, so now as the medicine ball moves with him, it increases the overall demand of the exercise. The wrestler defense is an exercise that we use having Olden on his back, feet up, slight bridge going here, and it's going to be like a wrestler or a mixed martial arts fighter trying to defend himself. So he's going to constantly be spinning and working, pivoting on his back, going side to side. In this case, we're using the med ball to create a further disruption of the center of gravity. If we wanted to, we could even partner up with this, where I was working to grab the med ball, he was trying to keep it away from me and spinning around. But in general, big demand on his lower body here, quick feet, high metabolic cost of this exercise.